Write like a man. Use a typewriter.
Babel. We know it as the Hebrew understanding of the word Babel as meaning confusion of the tongues, right? Where the languages were made after the flood. Nimrod stayed in Shinar, which is Sumer, where Babel was. And he continues in the practices of the mysticism and the religion, the mystery religion of Babel, and he creates the Magi and the development of that Eastern religion from there. And coming out of the descendants of Nimrod staying in Shinar are the Babylonians and the Assyrians, just as Asher comes from them, and the Akkadians beforehand, right? As you look at the history and the kings that come in Akkad, and Sargon is the king of Akkad, sort of bringing that sort of empire into place. And the Akkadians have a version of the Babel of Tower of Babel as well. And in that version, Babel doesn't mean confusion of languages. Really? It means El as in gods, and Bab as in gateway, like the portal of the gods.
Yeah.
There
it is.
Right?
Yep.
And so
all comes together, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Wow.
So if you link in what I was saying earlier from what the polytheists believe, is that Nimrod was given this great knowledge by Hermes, who found that knowledge before the flood, and he used that knowledge to build the city and the tower, that he may have been trying to build a portal into, because he was worshiping the pantheon of gods, and the Nephilim, and tried to be Nephilim-like as a mighty one or a Gibberim, and he is worshiping them and building this possible gateway, and that may be what he was trying to do, was free them in another dimension, the gods who went to the abyss, the ones that he was emulating and thought so highly of. So there's that connection there. And if you look at Gilgal Rephaim, which is the wheel of the gods, or the wheel of the giants.
It's on Hermon, right?
Yes, on Mount Hermon at the foot. And it was also one of the most significant worship sites of the early post-Diluvian world, and even went before the flood. It's that old. Really? And it's in that sort of circular sort of nature. And that, wheel is in Gilgal. There's two words in Hebrew for Gilgal. One is Ophan, as we talked about earlier, and Gilgal. This is the other one. Gilgal is used in Ezekiel 1 and Ezekiel 10, but only in relations to a specific wheel and not the angels within the wheel, which are the Ophanim in the Bible. Right? Yeah. Okay. So this is the wheel of the gods, and it was would have been in the possession of the Rephaim after the flood, and the Ugaritic Rephaim, or the Rapiu, who were travelers between the underworld and earth. Not only the gods, but the Rapiu kings, the demigods, after the flood. And Gilgal Rephaim has over 100 dolmens in it. And a dolmen is, if you Google Dolmen, you're going to see is like a mini Stonehenge type of thing. It has one big large rock like this, and usually two rocks that stand it up.
Okay.
And they're also known as fairy dolmens as well. And dolmen means portal. So they had like all of these different portals that were in Gilgal Rephaim, one of the most holy sites of the Rephaim in the Mount Hermon area after the flood, and a site that was there before the flood, because of course that's where the fallen angels had sworn their oath atop of Mount Hermon. And so we have to be aware, I think, that there are other dimensions and there are portals in there, and that CERN is part of that search into dimensions with AI and quantum computing, and maybe for one of the agendas trying to let those beings out of the abyss before the time, and also looking for other things as well, but I won't go down that rabbit hole right now. We're just talking about portals and things like that. So bringing this back a little bit more biblically, in the Gog War of Ezekiel 38 and 39, This is the same war, if you bear with me, as Joel 1 and 2, as opposed to Joel 3, which is the Armageddon war. And if you bear with me a little bit, these are the same creatures described in Joel 1 and 2 when the day of the Lord is coming, but it doesn't come, and it says that in Joel 3, and they have mighty ones in both of those two wars. And these are the same creatures described in Revelation 9 after the abyss has been opened and the 200 million man war comes about. This is the counterfeit Armageddon that Antichrist will use to introduce an age of peace and safety and to present his credentials as the Messiah, right? Because Jesus comes back for Armageddon. It's going to be such a horrific war. Everybody's going to think it's the Armageddon. So within that, understand that in Ezekiel 39, you have these mighty ones again, used a couple of times. And that's Gibborim. And that doesn't say Nephilim, it doesn't say Rephaim, but it says mighty ones, which is used a lot in reference. And it's also the sacrifice of Bashan. The bulls of Bashan are in there that come into relationship.